Thank you, Dr. Arun, for the really generous introduction. And thanks a lot to the organizing committee for inviting me for this very important session. I love the subject, and the most important thing is that I love the topic because lots of your own perspectives can be added to such topics. So there is no railway track meant here. Anyway, with this particular remark, I would like to sail through my slides and will tell you how the things should be seen as per my perspective when it comes to clinical application of the recent robust data which we have. Disclaimers are none related to this particular talk. Let us start with this particular slide which clearly says that all these three syndromes are hand in hand. CKD, heart failure, diabetes, each one is capable of pulling other two. Such an overlap is there. Whenever there is heart failure, there is 34 to 40% overlap of these ailments amongst each one of them. So when it comes to heart failure and detection of CKD, both are extremely delayed in clinical practice, and most of the time when they are declared, the things are out of our hands. Much can't be done much after that. That is the reason why this particular topic needs very important clinical implication and clinical application in our practice, day-to-day practice. Serendipity introduced us to very powerful attributes of this drug class. This is SGLT2 inhibitors in 2015. And so many trials were immediately planned by the researchers and fraternity and of course pharma industry. And after 1 lakh patient data, so robust data, we clearly now know with the 700 plus publications which have made around 85 to 100 tweaks and rephrasing of guidelines all over the world. Such powerful is the data set with us, especially after the preserved ejection fraction trial recently, which Dr. Virmani will be talking. So the jubilance is extreme with cardiology camp. They are happy that there are now 5 declared pathways, angiotensin, norepinephrine, aldosterone, neprilysin, SGLT2, which can be very well tackled by ARNI, beta blockers, mineralocorticoid receptor antagonist, and SGLT2 inhibitors. And this jubilation is very justified, as so much is the rate of conviction, the level of conviction and confidence, that almost 4 pillars have been declared, these drug classes in the treatment of HFrEF, that is the reduced ejection fraction. And these are all having 1A recommendation as per this day. Now, when it comes to level of conviction and confidence, you can clearly see the HFrEF treatment is now having all these 4 parallel pathways going simultaneously, being tackled by 4 these clinical classes of drug. Right from the day 1 is being recommended now. Such strong is the data set. And you can clearly see that now they are recommending right from day 1, all the 4 simultaneously can be started, even at community level. Again, the safety conviction, you can see how the things have changed over the years. But who is delighted? The person like you and me, diabetologists practicing in clinical practice on day-to-day practice, is not delighted, because this will be done in cardiology practice in tertiary care most of the times. You can clearly see that state exchequer, insurance companies, pharma companies, they will be benefited, but not the primary and secondary care physician and your patient, certainly not, because hospitalization from heart failure is being prevented through neurohumoral mechanisms being tackled. Heart is still the same and the mortality is not much altered. We all know in primary and secondary care very well, we know that the HFpEF, that is the preserved ejection fraction, is the real problem, which is increasing by every passing year. And once the heart failure occurs, we know that the survival rates are very pathetic in diabetics especially. When it comes to increment of the heart failure with increasing hemoglobin, 13% increment is seen with 1% increase hemoglobin, and 66% with HbA1c is crossing more than 10%. And at the same time, if you add albuminuria to it, risk is 3 to 4 times. Such is the state of affairs, which makes it absolutely very important subject to be tackled in clinical practice. Stage A, B, C, and D of the heart failure, very well, this slide will tell you that right from day 1 when the patient is diabetic, he is in stage A already. The day the diabetes is declared, stage A heart failure is already. Now the structural and functional changes will make it stage B. And if we can't hold our patient for years at stage B, then what we are doing? It's not the way we should be treating our patients, because we know that heart in HFpEF is particularly not at fault. It is being slaughtered by the things being happening around the heart, in the periphery, in the milieu, and of course in the cardiomyocytes are actually suffering because of the things around, that is oxidative damage. I'll not go into it because that is beyond the scope of this particular talk. So when it comes to implications of symptoms of heart failure, once the symptoms are there, you can clearly see stage B. That till that point things are okay, but when the patient is symptomatic, the survival rates surprisingly go rapidly downhill, and in stage D it is hardly 20% in 5 years, as bad as any cancer. And when it comes to clinical thought process, you must be provoked by understanding that heart failure with its preserved ejection fraction and reduced ejection fraction have almost similar fate in the long run. And for a clinician, therefore, HFpEF is something which is absolutely a matter of concern. And when we know that all these drugs which were making jubilant entire cardiology camp are actually not working much in HFpEF. So things are definitely, there are silver linings with these two classes of drugs, especially GLP-1. And you can clearly see that when it comes to heart failure, the SGLT2 inhibitors are supreme. And when it comes to MACE reduction, it is GLP-1. So GLP-1 receptor agonist must not be forgotten, because 35 to 40% contribution to the heart failure, even HFpEF, comes through the coronary artery issues related to. So we have to have some reforms here also. Diabetologists must be trained and treated to look for the heart failure. Heart failure is usually missed. We are not looking for it because there are no set protocols, no set guidelines available, because there are no drugs, so it is not in the clinics even diagnosed. So choice of drugs can make a lot of difference. This has been told by the recent trials, the previous slide which I showed you. And can we overcome these bottlenecks by using this particular two classes of these drugs? Let us try to see on that. As I said, the level of conviction with the experts was definitely supremely high, and as soon as this was discussed, we saw that ESC guidelines in 2019 came with why metformin et al. Should be given as first choice. Why not these two classes of the drugs right in the beginning? And they were very right. And recently the ADA also said either or, any one of these two should be used immediately when the patient is very high cardiovascular risk or already having cardiovascular issues. So with this background, when we try to do, this was the first step in precision medicine which the experts tried to bring out. Then the second step, of course, came when you want to treat something with the standards of care across the global level, then you have to have an universal definition of it. So this is how the definition came, that heart failure with preserved ejection fraction is actually symptoms and size are more important, no doubt. This remains a clinical syndrome. But left ventricular ejection fraction more than 50% with structural or functional documented damage happening to the myocardium, and with NT-proBNP raised is the new definition which tells you the heart failure with preserved ejection fraction formally has been now universally agreed upon by all the heart failure bodies, and the mid-range is now minimally reduced. The term has changed to MR, is now minimally reduced heart failure. And when it comes to A, B, C, D stage, it is now at risk, pre-heart and heart failure and advanced heart failure. All of the things are same as I showed you in the previous slide, but these are the new terminologies to be used. The most important thing, take-home message for the clinicians today is this. And they say that if the patient is having therapy as insulin, sulfonylurea, DPP-4 inhibitor, TZDs, and of course long-standing diabetes of more than 10 years is not being controlled, HbA1cs are more than 7% having microvascular disease, then you suspect HFpEF in the background. You should suspect when the hypertension, obesity, and of course atrial fibrillation is there, you should suspect HFpEF in the background, and definitely when it comes to increasing age and sleep apnea. So whenever these conditions are there, one should immediately go for NT-proBNP, and if NT-proBNP is more than 50, you have to initiate or add the SGLT2 therapies to the patient. This is the best thing which has done which has been done by the bodies now. And there is a level of evidence which is definitely unignorable. And when it comes to prediction of heart failure, lots of apps will soon be hitting your Android and iPhones. Both apps are almost at the verge of being released. And these are the things which have been in the recent ESD were presented by Antonio Carrillo, and these are the different apps which will be telling you the risk prediction in risk prediction of heart HFpEF in diabetics. So for key point for GPs is clinical diagnosis, yes, then role of anti-proBNP, level 1B. So level 1 evidence is there, and all these comorbidities, sorry for the spelling there, comorbidities, and they are to be tackled. We all know, we all are medicine people, we all know these are to be tackled. When it comes to heart failure treatment, when it is to heart failure prevention, hypertension cannot be forgotten, and we know that lot of bang for the buck lies with the heart failure benefits which we get with hypertension treatment, and salts which not to be forgotten. Chlorthalidone, I don't know why people have forgotten the all-head trial, the chlorthalidone, spironolactone, and now finerenone has come out with Fidelio DKD, which can be used to prevent congestive heart failure. In fact, the Fidelio trial is having all the results just parallel to Credence. It is so beautifully done there. So sprint data are mainly driven by hypertension control, heart failure control being led by hypertension. When it comes to obesity, not to be forgotten, every inch you lose, every kilo you lose, even diet, exercise improve the Kansas City score and functional score in heart failure, of course. And with every kilo reduced, every metabolic syndrome component is improving. We all know this. And things will be absolutely revolutionary once these trials are completed. Cagrilintide, semaglutide. I think the bypass surgeons are going to have a very bad time in coming years, because therapies are so strongly coming up with the GLP-1 analogs. So that makes a case of using this particular class. The other important take-home message for the clinicians is to make habit of using the optimum and maximal and the doses which are actually helpful for heart failure. In metoprolol, for example, 200 milligrams, you can see very few prescriptions I have seen 200 milligrams being used. So the complete dose has to be used. This is very important. But then diabetologist has to treat diabetes. And when it comes to diabetes management with the risk factors, we know when it comes to heart failure, diabetes management is not adequate, just controlling hyperglycemia there. We know that except GLP-1, SGLT2 inhibitors and metformin standing neutral out there with the recent publications of meta-analysis in favor of metformin, we can see all other drugs are either tainted or very difficult to be endorsed for prevention of heart failure. So when it comes to SGLT2 inhibitors, they have continued to surprise us right from 2015, even with the recent release of Emperor Preserved, which Dr. Virmani will be telling us. The miracles are continuing with this particular class, and I just want to bring home the point that 18% risk reduction, from 18th day only the 21% risk reduction ultimately which was achieved, and absolute risk reduction was 3.3% in this particular trial. A huge and very powerful shot in the arm which we have got. And men and women both are getting equal benefit. In Paragon, if you remember, even ARNI treatment was good only for women, not for men. So here we are getting good benefit for men also. And when it comes to co-therapies, in spite of RAS, MRAs, beta blockers, statins, still we are getting benefits in preserved ejection fraction. This was hitherto unheard of. We were actually wanting this thing. We were longing for this thing to have with us. And finally, the Kansas City score and the functional capacity is improving has also been shown. Dr. Virmani will be telling you the details of this thing. And of course, the DAPA, the delivered data which have come out recently, the partial data only, show that functional score and 6-minute walking score is improving with dapagliflozin also. So with all this, if you bring out meta-analysis of all those completed trials, you can clearly see they are bang on the spot. You just cannot do without SGLT2 inhibitors now if you really want to prevent heart failure with preserved ejection fraction. Amplitude O is the recent trial Naved Sattar reported in August this year only. And Amplitude O is with epiglinatide. This is an exendin-based weekly new GLP-1 receptor analog which is showing that despite SGLT2 being given in the background in the same patients, it was beneficial. So GLP-1 analogs separately extra benefits coming out with SGLT2 inhibitors, and metformin use was also there in this particular triad. And when we take amplitude O with harmony, which was the only positive trial previously in heart failure with GLP-1 analogs, you will be surprised to see how the things are changing in GLP-1 scenario also. FP-glinatide has busted another myth that only human analogs are working. So you are having now, when it comes to all the 5 SGLT2 inhibitors available, level 1A evidence for prevention of heart failure almost, and treatment of heart failure 3, 1A, level 1A recommendation, again, very powerful recommendation from the societies, and of all these things, hypertension, etc., all has to be treated, no doubt about it. So this was the Anna Noramer. I was very impressed with this slide when she was doing the commentary. This ESD, I was just watching virtually. And then I found that when she said that you should be looking for a prescription when SGLT2 inhibitor is not there, ask why it is not there. Why it is not being written. We are having more reasons. And this was the slide which I took from Antonio Cerillo's talk in the same EST 2021. He said that we know that metformin or whatever we are doing in the beginning has very important role when it is intensive treatment is to be planned, and we know that intensive treatment is very, very important right from the beginning, from day one. These trials have shown us. Then we know that even in the late stages, when the macrovascular complications are present, even in these negative trials, we did an intensive treatment and we found benefits. So glycemic control cannot be ignored at all. We are diabetologists. How can we ignore the glycemic control? So then with this evidence in the background, we know that from the verified trial that the things, if started right in the beginning in combination, the things are more durable, things are longer lasting, things are more efficacious. With all this, we know this Lancet editorial was beautiful. This guy said that sooner than later you have to use combinations. So let the academicians fight metformin or not metformin, or which first or which one second. Sooner or later you will be using combinations. So keep this in mind. So why don't we, again Antonio Cerullo's slide here, why don't we propose to have some cardiocentric and glucocentric approach right from the beginning, from day one? And this is the reason why he recommended metformin plus either GLP-1 or SGLT2 inhibitor right in the beginning for the high-risk cardiovascular cases. And this is the thing, I think, the precision medicine step 4 as far as I am concerned. So when it comes to the base of the therapy, if you make SGLT2 inhibitor, GLP-1 analog as the base of your therapy in the beginning, and metformin the third drug in waiting, is okay. Metformin, SGLT2, third drug GLP waiting, no problem. But start at least 2 drugs in the beginning, and this bingo ad always comes in my mind whenever this type of situation comes. So you can have any side you can check, it is the bingo mad angle. So in diabetes, it is mandatory that cardiovascular protection is accompanied by an early intensive management of hyperglycemia. This means to harmonize the gluco and cardiocentric approach of the disease management, and it can be done with the current evidence-based classes of drugs we have. An early combination of hypoglycemic agent is the logic solution. So the most important is the heart failure has to be recognized, new definition has to be relearned, has to be applied in clinical practice. Clinical phenotyping with echo and anti-pro-BNP testing has to be done by every clinician now onwards. Early intervention with the right evidence-based combination drugs right from the beginning, attending simultaneously with the comorbid condition with tight glycemic controls right from day one, every passing years. The Kamlesh Kunti's article just now released, every passing year without good control means extra 54-60% myocardial infarctions. So how can you afford that? So best combination of glucocentric and cardiocentric drugs right from the beginning, and precautions and of course for adverse effects has to be there. Being a responsible clinician, no rocket science there. We can't afford that infections or volume depletions or hyponatremias and hypokalemias. You have to tackle that, no problem. That is part of the game we keep on doing. So with this, a big thank you. This is how I feel the optimization of the heart failure can be brought about easily in our day-to-day practice without doing much an effort. And if there are any queries, I will be happy to reply on email also. I have my website, and I have the hashtags in all the social media where I keep on posting things. With this, I want to finish up. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.